Today is World Milk Day. Did you know that?
World what day?
World Milk Day.
World Milk Day?
In the United States, I guess.
In the United States, it's World Milk Day. Wait,
yeah,
how can the United States declare it's World Milk Day?
Yes.
How does that work? Whatever.
Don't you like milk?
I mean, I'm not opposed to milk. I would not like die if I drank a glass of milk.
Oh, you're not lactose intolerant?
Oh, I am.
Okay, so you're just not highly allergic.
No. I would like feel it later a little bit, but other than that,
Sure.
I mean, it's not a huge issue. It's not like if I drink milk, I'll bloat immediately. Which should be a problem. Because it would mean I wouldn't be able to enjoy many of the things that I enjoy now.
Yeah.
That's interesting. World Milk Day, huh? I'm going to tell my friend that.
It's not that interesting.
I know, but my friend really likes milk.
Oh. Yeah, I have a friend like that too, actually. But she's lactose intolerant, so she has to drink lactate.
That's sad. Actually, speaking of lactose intolerance, though, I do actually have lactose-free oat milk.
Oh. Is that the stuff that you were like going to like Whole Foods or something for?
Yeah. I bought some chocolate Oatly just because they had it, and it's pretty good, honestly. It's like really nice and creamy and nutty.
Nice. I've not had any such thing.
Like, aside from the texture and some of the like, it like definitely doesn't taste like cow's milk, but it has the same like sort of fattiness and texture to it that full fat cow's milk has, which is really nice, actually. Is
it grainy at all?
No.
Oh.
You should try it if you can find it. Okay. They usually have like a carton or two at like Whole Foods usually.
You act like I shop at Whole Foods.
Go to a Whole Foods once in a while. You'll find some weird stuff.
It's
like
too
oat
bougie
milk
for me.
Renu, no one's too bougie for oat milk. Come on, Renu. Oat milk is the way of the future. You know, because Sweden invented it.
We have to follow Sweden.
Yeah, we gotta follow Sweden's lead in this important manner. Okay.
Yep.
Okay. Well, let's start the podcast.
We'll shelve that for later.
I'm just gonna stick that in before the intro, and we're gonna be talking about milk for like a solid 5 minutes.
It's fine. Don't worry. Let's go.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Atcast, a podcast for the study of modern visual culture. You thought this would be a regular episode, but it was a Jojo cast!
Oh my
I'm
God.
your stand user, Soup, and my stand is Cruel Angel's Thesis, which allows me to talk about anime for long periods of time.
I'm your stand user co-host, Renu. And my stand is, of course, Fly Me to the Moon. Why wouldn't it be?
What does your stand do?
It allows me to somehow ingest large amounts of salt from various forms of media and still survive.
I think that's a very valuable and a good ability.
Right.
Yeah.
Increases my survivability by quite a bit.
So, if you can't tell, this week AT stands for Anticipation Tremors, because this week we'll be talking about JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. And to explain that joke, because Renu asked me to explain it, in JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, there is this sort of iconic thing that happens where the onomatopoeia for this rumbling noise is like go, 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 or do, 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 do. And it usually anticipates some amount of, power level or strength or menacingness. Like
Yeah.
sometimes an empty hallway will go at you, and it means that someone's approaching.
You see it a lot in manga, but
Yeah,
because
it's rumbling, man.
yeah, but this anime in particular likes to animate those onomatopoeia effects on screen.
Yes.
So
And it's real good. It's real good. Okay,
Yeah.
before we get into that, what have we been up to? Because it's been kind of a long time.
it's been a while. We had to skip last time because of stuff and stuffs.
Well, I was sick, and you weren't here.
Yeah,
And then-
I was out of the state.
And then, there was a lot of things. And a lot of it was me being sick. I was sick for like a solid 3 weeks.
You were sick for like the beginning of this year till now.
See, the problem is that I got sick, and then when I was getting better, I think I caught a different cold. Because before I wasn't coughing, right? I spent a week kind of sick, and it was mostly like, sniffly nose, like really tired, et cetera, et cetera. And then I picked up a cough from somewhere. So I think I caught someone else's illness at the end of my illness.
I think you just need to stop swapping germs all the time.
Yeah, I need to stop licking the floor.
There is no 5-second rule for you.
No. That floor has been there forever. I don't know how long it's just so appealing. I just want to meh.
No!
What the fuck was that noise? What? Okay, all right. Why don't you start?
Okay. So I was absent because I was at Animazement in Raleigh, North Carolina, which is one of my favorite conventions because it means I get to hang out with all my friendsies because that's
Nice.
that's where they live.
For some reason, all your friends seem to live in that area. That's
They do.
true.
They live in the Charlotte / Raleigh Durham area, so I always get to see them whenever I come back to North Carolina. And it's almost like I lived there for a long time.
I guess that's true. I guess that'll do it.
Yeah, but yeah, it was a lot of fun. I had a bunch of artists who I was friends with. They were also tabling next to me, and so we had a whole row of people, and it was a huge, awesome, good time. We had a
Nice.
funny, kind of weird experience where this New Zealand couple was like following us back from dinner.
What?
And so that was a bit weird, but we kind of
like purposely?
Yes, they kind of basically they basically decided that they were gonna insert themselves into our group, and our friend was so freaked out that he was just like, yeah, you could join, I guess, when they asked if they could join us. But it was very weird because they were clearly like in their 50s and we were a bunch of young 20-somethings.
That's bizarre. That's kind of scary.
Yeah, and so my friends, like, when I was telling this story to people on Twitch, they were like, are you sure that they weren't like swingers or something?
Oh my god.
And so then I was like, wow, you know what? Maybe.
I have no evidence to the contrary.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, they walked with us for a long time because we were walking from a restaurant back to our the convention center. So
Oh,
yeah, it was
that's highly
weird.
uncomfortable.
It was highly uncomfortable, yes. But we made it.
I don't like that.
It ended uneventfully, thank God.
Well, that's good to hear.
Yeah, but otherwise the
That,
convention was great.
It's good to hear that you weren't just sort of like being strong-armed by swingers and or being murdered and having your flesh flayed from your body.
I'm pretty sure we were in the wrong part of town for that. So
Okay.
we were okay. I'm in the middle of convention season, so I'll be busy with conventions through the end of August, which, that's how it goes in the summer. But other than that, I also went to go watch Detective Pikachu.
Nice.
Which I will not be spoiling because
Yeah, because I
you
haven't seen it.
Yeah, and I'm sure people listening to this also have yet to see it. But it was a grand old time. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, that's the general consensus I've been getting, that people actually seem to like this movie quite a bit.
Yeah, I don't want to like overhype it in terms of like, oh my god, it was the best movie ever, because it wasn't, obviously. But
Right.
I went in with the expectation that Ryan Reynolds would be Pikachu, and that's what I got.
That's an important expectation to have.
Exactly.
I'm glad that it lives up to Ryan Reynolds being Pikachu.
Yeah, right.
As much as it in my heart, it will always be Danny DeVito. Ryan Reynolds is a pretty good second.
Yeah, what have you been up to?
I've been up to, I mean, other than dying, I guess.
Yes.
I have been quite busy for various reasons. One of which is because I spent like a month watching and reading JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, like all of it. And that ended up being kind of problematic for my productivity.
Mm-hmm.
And so I spent a lot of time catching up. I'm still not 100% caught up, but it doesn't at this point really matter because I can just kind of cheese it through the end of the quarter, and I probably won't fail, which is
as long as you
good.
Pass. That's all that matters.
Yeah, as long as I pass, that's all that matters. Mm-hmm. I wrapped up a D&D campaign yesterday. I was not running that one, but I was playing in it. So we wrapped that one up, and we're going to start, and God, this was my mistake, hey? My mistake was, I then spent the next, 2 hours talking with two of the other people who are going to be players about what kind of characters we should make. And it was 3 or 4 in the morning by the time we stopped talking, because we were so excited about it. And, yeah, no, the game was pretty good. We destroyed the evil little death god girl that was gonna turn the entire world into zombies, and then my character, who was a conquering paladin, conquered the world because that's what he does. And he also, okay, so I do have to talk about this briefly because it is actually somewhat pertinent to the episode today. But
okay.
So my character is a conquering paladin, which means that he wants to conquer the world, basically, and then beyond, if he can manage it. And my DM put a thing in the game called the Deck of Many Things.
Yeah.
Which, if you're familiar with, it's just a bunch of cards that have random effects that will do certain things, and they're all kind of powerful or interesting or weird. Yeah. And the thing is that we encounter this deck once every 2 or 3 campaigns. So my DM made a new deck full of different effects. And so we used that one. Mm-hmm. And there were a lot of shenanigans going on, and we had to do a lot of hard resets on characters using the reincarnate spell so that we could lose some bad effects, if my character that uses heavy weapons happens to lose an arm and can't get it back with regenerate, so he has to just die and be reincarnated because I can't use my legendary weapon that requires 2 hands.
So you were like, I would rather choose death.
I would rather choose death and then be reincarnated using the reincarnate spell. Anyway, what happened was I drew one last card on a blank slate body, and I became a vampire.
Oh, great.
So basically, I just became Dio.
So you became a vampire paladin, or were you just a vampire?
Oh, no, I was a vampire paladin. I was a paladin that was infected with vampirism, I suppose you could say. Although it's not technically a disease in D&D. And that was it. Anyway, we finished that campaign, and I'm looking forward to the next one because one of my friends who's never DM'd before is going to try his hand at it. And we've decided on general ideas for characters. The person who's DMing and I are going to be bodyguards for one of the other characters. And we're going to be elves. But the elves, we're going to canonically say, have southern accents.
Great.
And so we're going to be southern accented bodyguards. It's going to be great. It's going to be super funny. Okay. Other than that, Grand Blue Fantasy just came out with a new event, a new story event. And it's super, super cute. It's ridiculously, ridiculously good because it is a slice of life event about the members of the crew, and they vent their problems to the lady at the bar because she opens a bar in the middle of the ship because the ship is huge and has a sub galley, and people need to talk about their problems.
Sure.
And it's so amazing. Like, I'm so happy to see that they're just sort of like they're willing to just like make an event that has a lot of like little details, and it's like not, the stakes aren't very high about it, right? It's just like a slice of life event about, you know, the characters talking about the sort of things. It's very casual. It's very very slice of life. I really enjoyed it. I thought it was really, really cute, really well done. It went in a different direction than I thought it would in the second half, but that ended up being fine because it fleshes out the main character, who's like, you know, supposed to be your like sort of fleshless husk self-insert, but it actually does a little bit of characterization to them in a way that has been somewhat absent before, actually.
Sure, yeah.
So, kudos. That was a really well done event, and
Nice.
I'm glad that we're sort of digging into, like, the conceit of the story is that your dad is a legendary sky adventurer who went to like the promised land or whatever, and he literally just left you as a little baby to go there, and so it deals somewhat with your your traumatic past about having your father abandon you when you're like 5 or 6. So that was really cute, and
That was really cute, the way that they dealt with that trauma.
I mean, the whole event was, and I mean, yeah. The focus of the event was Ladiva, who is one of the trans characters in Cygames' repertoire, and she's handled really sensitively, and I'm so grateful, because I keep thinking like, oh, okay, are you gonna fuck it up this time? Are you gonna fuck it up this time? But no, they just keep delivering.
Well, that's refreshing.
It's the most refreshed I've ever been playing a Japanese video game.
Yeah.
When it comes to this sort of thing. So
Nice.
You know, big kudos. Also, she's made her way into the fighting game Grand Blue Versus.
Ooh.
Yeah, she's the grappler character. That's super
Killing it.
And she just got an SSR version, which is super exciting because
Nice.
You know, it's always nice when a character you like gets an SSR version, because it means they can be relevant to the game.
You're right. You can actually use them.
You can actually use them and not feel bad.
Right.
Yeah. And then aside from that, I finally opened an AO3 account.
Did you?
Yeah. Well, so the reason I haven't had an account until now is because I don't write fan fiction.
Right. And you can read all the stuff on there without having an account.
Yeah, but
yeah.
I made an account simply so I could post my my 200 word fan fiction about Grand Blue Fantasy.
You're in so deep.
Because I had a headcanon plaguing my brain for a solid 2 weeks about certain characters in the game, and so I
had to get it out.
I wrote a fan fiction, and it is not even 200 words. It has 194 words.
Wow. You concise.
But yeah, so I guess that's a thing now. I guess I have fan fiction on my sort of plate, and I don't promise I'll write any more of it. I just made this account to post this one fic.
Yeah, that's fair.
All right. And speaking of new things, we have a Patreon page now. Patreon! Yay! So if you want to show your support for the podcast, if you want to help us keep up with the cost of operating it, then you can. There's a couple of rewards up there now. You can just show your support, and you'll get access to the Discord server, and you can chat with us. Or you can pay $5 a month, and you can get more stuff. You can get the bonus content, because what we're going to do is we're going to record the vetting process that we have for watching anime, seasonal anime, and we'll post that. And it's not going to be edited or anything.
It's
it's just we're just going to put it up there, and you're going to It's gonna be a hot mess. But if you want more of us starring some other people, then you can do that, and you can watch that for $5. You only have to pay $5 once, really, to get access to the vault, and we're not going to take it away from you. So
yeah, exactly.
If you want to change it up or down after that, you're completely free to.
Absolutely.
We're just glad that you would support the podcast, and at $10 a month, we'll give your name a shout out at the end of the episode, and we'll mail you a postcard.
Yeah, it'll be written by one or both of us, and we'll probably have some art that I did, maybe.
Yeah, it'll be super fun. Fun. So you can do that. You can help us keep up with operating costs, because Adobe is just a complete bastard, and they don't let you buy the programs anymore. So you just have to subscribe to it, and
forever.
Don't forget you're here forever. I hate the fact that Adobe has sort of locked me into Audition, which is just an objectively easier tool to use than Audacity. Audacity hurts my eyeballs.
Oh. Yeah, but it's kind of like you get what you pay for kind of thing.
Yeah, you get... I mean, it's... I don't... you get what you pay for, sort of. Not that it's justified, right? Yeah. It's like, I don't want to pay an arm and a leg for this.
Yeah. It's quite absurd.
Yeah, I mean, this is not equivalent exchange, Adobe. You're going to have to learn a thing or two about alchemy. But yeah, you can help us keep up with like various subscription costs like Crunchyroll and High Dive, so that we can continue watching anime and bring it to you. And, the cost of hosting the podcast on our podcast host. Anyway, you can support us. And if you did, we'd super appreciate it. You don't have to, but because we just appreciate you listening. But if you want to, show your support a little more, you can.
Yes, this is purely for people who have been like donating to me and been like, "This is for the podcast." So I'm like, "Cool," and I transfer it over to Soup.
Right,
this is an easier way to do it.
Yeah, because all of the operating costs come out of my wallet.
Yeah, his name is on all the account stuff.
Okay, let's talk about JoJo's Bizarre Adventure.
Yay! I'm so excited. You're in JoJo's hell with me now.
Oh my god, Okay, so I legitimately was not expecting to fall as hard as I did into it, because I started a couple of the episodes and I was like, this is kind of neat. I like how weirdly over the top it is.
Right.
It, this was clearly written in the 20th century.
Right, exactly.
But the longer you watch it, the more you get invested in it, even when they sort of change everything between parts.
Yes.
You're just really invested in it.
Yes, and for me, it was just like the fact that it evolved between parts. That's the investment for me.
I think most people will most people will not like part 1 and will very much like part 2 a lot better. Yeah. And we'll get into talking about specifics about it. This is not a spoiler friendly podcast. We're going to talk about spoilers. Yes. Spoil the heck out of it. Gonna slightly spoil part 6 a little bit. And part 7 a little bit, but not too much. Mm-hmm. But it doesn't really matter, because really we're just going to be talking about the anime stuff, because that's much more manageable. There's 30 years worth of JoJo's Bizarre Adventure to sort of go through. So I think for the sake of not being here for 5 hours, we're gonna try to keep it a little bit concise, as much as possible at any rate. So you might be asking yourself, what is JoJo's Bizarre Adventure? JoJo's Bizarre Adventure is the story of one man's battle against his megalomaniac vampire stepbrother alongside his magic-breathing teacher and a man he met on the streets who loves him so hard he sugar daddies his entire bloodline for the rest of time.
It's true!
JoJo's Bizarre Adventure is the story of two men's struggle against ancient deity-like vampire men that seek to become perfect beings in order to rule the world.
You have a lot of muscles.
JoJo's Bizarre Adventure is the globe-trotting adventure of 5 friends and their dog tracking down one man's grandfather's megalomaniac vampire stepbrother in order to save his daughter from dying due to a manifestation of latent psychic energy.
Pretty good.
It's also a small-town murder mystery series about a gang of children that use their astral projection powers to uncover the secret past of the town and track down the murderer lurking in its midst.
That's not familiar at all.
It's also a mob movie about joining the mafia in order to unseat the leader of the family and stop the flow of drugs in the streets.
Man. We're in Italy now.
JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. is a story about legacy, inheritance, family, and bonds. It's about rising against adversity and facing it head-on to protect those we hold dear.
Jojo!
Jojo! JoJo's Bizarre Adventure is a 1987 manga created by author Hirohiko Araki, detailing the Joestar Bloodline's adventures as each part takes place generations after the last and involves a new twist on the genre and format of the series. For the last 30 years, it has continued to impress with its uniqueness, creativity, style, and always looking to upset the expectations of its audience. Let's get into it!
Yes!
Part 1 of JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, Phantom Blood, or Dio Steals the Show.
Yes, in which soft boy Jonathan Joestar is raised in an era when men are born buff straight out of the womb.
That's correct. Like, okay. So this part of JoJo comes from like the Fist of the North Star era.
Yes,
and
exactly.
Jonathan Joestar just looks like the main character of the Fist of the North Star.
Yes.
And it clearly is from that era.
Mm-hmm.
Aside from its kind of like English intrigue story about vampire stepbrother, Stone Mask Mayan death cult.
Yeah,
powers.
It has a bit of that like Phantom of the Opera kind of like I don't know vibe
Yeah.
to it.
For sure. There is kind of this like over the top dramaticism about it that I think also gets played up a little bit in the anime to great effect. I think
Oh yeah.
I think it works really well. And I don't know. I think that people are not as interested in part 1 because Jonathan Joestar is like so vanilla of a main character.
He's
because
the
like
white bread of the JoJos.
Like that's the era that he comes from. Right? He's just there to do his best. He's like just a nice boy. He's soft and nice, and he wants to do his best. And he'll punch his brother if he keeps murdering,
Which he does, you know.
which he does.
Yeah, it's a time, and it's obviously highly experimental, which is what I love
think
about
so.
Araki's work in general. Is like he kind of like tests the waters with a lot of different things, and whatever sticks he carries on with, and whatever doesn't he drops.
Yeah, like even in the sort of like latent weirdness of the show, you get a little bit of it, even though it's clearly sort of working off of the popular material of the time. Like all of the men are super buff.
Yeah,
They punch each other a lot.
It's really highly derivative, unfortunately, but it does like I said, it does try to do its own thing, and then
there's some interesting stuff.
I think it doesn't really culminate until part 2, which is why people love part 2 so much, because it's like he's really finding his own voice right now.
Yeah, part 1 is very like it feels like a show from like the 70s or 80s.
Yeah.
I will say though, I do think that there, especially in the anime, I think that the characterization of Dio is so strong, and so many memes come from Dio in this part of the anime.
Yeah.
Really, Dio is the real main character of part 1.
Yeah.
Even though it's nominally about Jonathan and Zeppeli and Speedwagon.
Mm-hmm.
God, I love Speedwagon.
He's basically the best part of part 1. It's just him. Every time he popped up on the screen, I was like, okay,
right, because he's the voice that is like explaining things. He's like, oh my God, he's doing this, he's doing that. And it's so over the top that you like, even though it's like completely obvious that this is like, this is standard battle manga fare where they're like, wow, look at his technique, right?
Right.
You love Speedwagon so much because he's just so straightforwardly like everything. I think that everything in part 1 is very straightforward, and it's very straightforwardly charming if you're into it, and otherwise you just kind of have to stick it out until part 2.
Yeah.
I would just say watch part 1 for Dio, because part 1 is
you need the background on Dio, unfortunately. If you don't like part 1,
it makes part 3 way better when you have the background, and because Dio doesn't actually appear for a lot of part 3, his impact is kind of diminished if you don't have it. I think it's not that hard to get through part 1 if you just kind of commit to watching it.
Right.
Like
exactly.
if you just
Yep.
like some of the stuff is gonna feel like okay, yeah, this is kind of dated. Some of the stuff is gonna feel like okay, I'm a little bit bored about this.
Right.
But you just have to kind of like go with it. Just like sort of give yourself up to the JoJo flow.
Just ride on the JoJo wave and let it take you out into its waters.
just watch it for a buff man shouting like ability names as he punches his brother, who is a vampire, who makes lots of... Okay, the anime is animated pretty decently, but it is by far carried so hard by both voice acting and sound design.
Yes, oh my god, its music is just like breathtaking.
It's music, its sound effects, its like sound cues are all incredible. Like when Dio first shows up in the show and they play that like electric guitar riff that and like they make the like big sound effects kind of like slam on the screen like right? That's a really, really, really good moment, and it has a lot of impact because of the sound and visual design of the show.
Yes.
And then, and this is somewhat hilarious, which is they use the same voice actors for the characters when they're 12 for when they're like 30.
Oh my, and I mean, honestly though, their physiques don't even change that much.
Like the physiques don't change, so it kind of fits.
Like you already think that they're young adults from how they are when they're 12. And then when you see them when they're in college, you're like, oh my god, I didn't see anything yet.
Pigs. Beefy boys. You have to completely give up trying to like make sense of it, right? Like, yes, they're 12. Yes, they have the muscles of like Swedish bodybuilders. You just have to get over it.
Yeah, if you're not familiar with that era of anime whatsoever, and you start watching JoJo, it's gonna throw you off. But it's
everyone
just, like,
is so buff,
right? It just comes from that time period, and that was the aesthetic then.
I mean, yeah, it's very much like about like being manly. And I will say, I think in that respect, part 1, Phantom Blood, is a little bit sort of different in that respect because the manliness that it's about is less like over the top, like punching people into believing you to be more like, you know, Jonathan Joestar. He's a gentleman. He's doing his best.
I did like that. Nice. That it wasn't all about like the machismo. It was about
exactly.
Yeah, it's like Dio represents like a lot of like the savagery that comes with like, you know, being masculine man and being raised by a toxic father. And then Jonathan is like the opposite, you know, and he still wants to try to stay true to who he is and stand up for his beliefs, but he knows that he's not as strong as Dio, so he has to find other ways around it.
Yeah. I will say I love this that part 1 has inklings of what is to come. And it is something that becomes retroactively much better once you've seen the rest of JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. Like, I think that if you watch all of season 1 and then you start watching season 2, you'll instantly have an appreciation for season 1 because there's a lot of it where, first of all, like you instantly set up an amount of continuity, and this is a show about like generational inheritance of legacy,
right? And it feels like because of that, you inherit some investment, like whatever investment you might have had in the first part with Jonathan, or at least, you know, some of the circumstances surrounding him, it carries over into the next part and so on and so forth. Yeah.
Like I love that, like because even in part 1, right, like it is about the legacy that Jonathan inherits from his father and the legacy that Dio inherits from his father, right? And those sort of forces are at odds with each other. And so it's kind of this like diametrically opposed battle. And it only gets better the farther you go. Because Dio shows up again in part 3, and at that point it becomes a blood feud. And that's like...
Yes.
That's when it becomes, so good.
Chef's kiss.
Chef's kiss, so good. Yeah, I just watch it for how ridiculous it is. Give yourself up to how silly it is, and how nothing is just gonna make sense. Like nothing is gonna make any sense. Just listen to a buff good soft boy yell Sunlight Yellow Overdrive and punch things. do his very best. I think that there is a little bit of the creativity of the battles in part one.
He's like kind of foraying into it, but he obviously doesn't have a system yet. And so he's like, oh, look at this sword that Jonathan gets, and yet we don't address it ever again. Oh, look at this power that has no specific rules whatsoever. And so
it's just
you
like,
get to see it being finely tuned in the subsequent parts, which is awesome.
Yeah, it's very much something that builds over time. Like, yes. I love that some of the battles, because I think in part one, it's like all of the Hamon stuff, like
yes.
all of the like breathing ability is, I mean, it's pretty straightforward in that one, but there's some fun applications when Jonathan is confronting Dio in the mansion, where he uses the sword, and you're like, that's how he's gonna avoid being frozen to death. Yeah, cool.
Cool.
Cootie. So yeah, definitely, like, I would not recommend skipping part one, and just because I think it makes everything after it better if you experience it, and also just because you should just watch it.
Through. Yeah,
you should just watch it for Dio. Okay. If you want to watch JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, you do have to be aware of like one thing, which is this is not an animal cruelty free show in any respect.
All right,
there are so many dogs that die.
We gotta talk about that,
get punched, fight each other.
That was literally from episode 1.
Episode 1, Dio punches a dog.
Look, it doesn't even like that's not even the extent of it. Is the thing? It's like I tried to watch JoJo's many years ago, and I was like, I wonder why like all this beginning part feels familiar. Why didn't I ever continue it? And by the time I get finished with episode 1, I remember why. Is because big spoils for the first episode, whatever. He punches, not only does he physically assault the dog for doing nothing. It's just a dog. Nothing. It's the family dog. It's an old dog. Later on, at the very end of the episode, he manages to trick everyone into somehow, I don't remember exactly how he did it, but he basically deceived everyone into basically when he had the dog in the incinerator. When they started up the incinerator, they roasted their own family dog.
Yep.
That's how the first episode ends. And I was like, years ago, I was like, okay, I'm out. And then this time I was in that mindset of, okay, I want to sit down. I want to figure out JoJo's and understand why people like it so much. It was, again, very hard to get through.
Yeah,
so,
I think it turns a lot of people off, that moment.
No, yeah, for
Which
sure.
Which is fair.
And it's entirely fair. There are people out there that like animals more than they like other humans. Like, that's fair.
True. That's true.
So, yeah. It can be tough, especially if you like, animals and dogs and stuff, but that
doesn't let up. It doesn't let up either.
No, it doesn't either. And that's the whole point of it, in a sense, is because, I mean, first of all, Araki's a fan of dogs, so it's not like he loves torturing dogs or anything, but it's there to show like how awful Dio is. And yeah, it's kind of like, propping up like, oh, I created this creature so that I can show you how awful this human being is when he crushes it. Like that kind of setup is what Araki likes to do a lot. So yeah. Just be forewarned about that.
Yeah, just watch part 1 for Dio, because boy, like, Dio's voice actor is so good.
Yes, I like it. He's in so many anime, so obviously he's a veteran.
all of the like really weird sound effects he does, and all of the weird things he says, he's just like, Jojo, you are but a monkey. A monkey could never stand up to a human being.
Monkey なんだよ。
Monkey なんだよ。Monkey 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 なんだよ。 Oh my god. I love Dio and just how over the top evil he is. He's such a bad dude.
Such a bad man.
He's such a bad dude. Okay, fun fact about the dub though, because the conceit of JoJo's Bizarre Adventure is that it takes place in England. All of the characters have British accents.
Really? Are they like for realsies British accents, or is it like?
Oh no, they're like the
on?
most like generic fake British accents ever.
Oh,
it is
God dang
incredible to hear like dub Dio just be like, a monkey could never stand up to a human being. Jojo, you are nothing but a monkey.
Your Hamon training avails you nothing. It's useless, 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 useless! A mere monkey can never defeat a lion! In comparison to my power, you are but a mere monkey, Jojo!
It is chef's kiss. Mwah. So bad. It's so bad it's good.
I don't know why I expected them to have had actual like English voice actors in the studio, but one can hope.
I will say the dub for part 3 is much better because the voice actor for Jotaro is Matthew Mercer. So,
yes.
Yeah, it's naturally going to be. I think they were better at dubbing the show then too, and they don't have to stick to the phony British accents.
Bless.
All right. Let's talk about part 2, Battle Tendency.
Part 2. Stars, Best Boy, Tomokazu Sugita.
Best Boy, Tomokazu Sugita.
Joseph, oh my god.
Oh my god.
And his best bro, Caesar.
Yep.
And
definitely banging.
Yep.
Listen, I love it.
Not awkward.
I love it because it's they go from being like enemies sort of like at the beginning to like rivals and then to friends and then to blood brothers. Yeah, you know what? Part 2 I think captures a lot of people if part 3 doesn't. Like I think part 2 takes all of the stuff that happens in part 1 and really sort of improves on it.
Yes, it does. It improves on it by leaps and bounds. Yeah.
Yeah. Every aspect of it is much sharper, much tighter, much more compelling. Tomokazu Sugita plays an incredible Joseph Joestar. I'm kind of sad that they swapped him out for a different voice actor when he gets older in part 3.
Yeah.
But at the same time, that voice actor is also really, really good. And
yeah, no, they're both good.
We wouldn't have gotten the iconic "Oh my god" lines. So I'm kind of okay with it.
Yeah.
Oh my god!
But yeah, they got Tomokazu Sugita to play the sort of like fast thinking, sarcastic, like he's such a different protagonist from Jonathan.
Like, he feels so refreshing if you did not particularly like Jonathan, or if you were like, okay, Jonathan's fine. Then comes in Tomokazu Sugita.
Right. Then comes in Tomokazu Sugita to whisk your heart away to Joseph Land. Hey, baby!
Baby.
Yeah, I think that like it's a lot easier to get into part 2, and I think some people recommend that you skip part 1. Obviously, we don't.
Yeah.
But I can see why.
Yes.
Because Joseph Joestar is a much more compelling character because he's I think because he's like so clearly flawed in ways that Jonathan isn't necessarily.
It's
Jonathan's
actually kind of likable in
Jonathen's only real like character flaw is that he's too nice, which I mean, don't get me wrong, is a character flaw when it comes to fighting Dio, because he's like,
exactly, they exploit that a lot.
Jonathan, please let me go. I'll never do anything bad again. He's like, well, I guess I should let you go. Just kidding. You're like, oh no.
Yeah, but it feels like with part 2, they know how to make fun of the main character's flaws, right? Like there's so many times where they rag on Joseph like running away all the time, and then that plays to his advantage later on in battles, you know?
Yeah. I think there is something about Joseph as like a different kind of protagonist as well, because he doesn't really solve all his problems just by punching his way through them.
No, he doesn't. Like,
his fighting style is so vastly different, even though his ability, his like Hamon ability, is the same.
Yes.
Like he's a much subtler protagonist about cunning and trickery
Yes,
and about
yes.
outsmarting your opponent, which I think is another reason why part 2 is so lauded over part 1.
Right.
It's because the fights are much more interesting.
Yeah, it's a lot less predictable in that sense because you're like, what's he gonna pull now?
Right. And it's just really fun when he's just like, next you'll say this, and then they say it, they're like, oh. Although I will say it was very amusing when Straight So becomes a vampire and Joseph is like, oh, by the way, gun. Bah, 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 bah.
Yes.
Like that's really the moment when you're like, oh, wow.
Okay, so this is who
I guess
we're
this is
dealing
what
with.
I'm in for.
Yeah.
Like, where did he get that?
He's American, so it comes with
It's
the
true.
genes.
It's true. So part 2 is I think that in part 2, as good as Joseph Joestar is, really the Pillar Men are kind of like the iconic takeaway from part 2, because they're the ones that really reinforce this like JoJo as like weird poses, like these fashion poses.
Yes, they do.
And then also obviously the Pillarman theme is super iconic.
Oh yes.
Like
really good.
I inserted into an episode when we talked about something else, and like it's one of the iconic themes of the show, along with the battle theme from part 3. They're like do 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 do. The music is actually consistently very good. Like,
Yes.
I don't dislike any of the openings or endings.
Really? There are some that
Yeah.
I actually do dislike.
I think that's fair, but to me, whenever I don't necessarily whenever I'm not super on board with a JoJo opening, by the 4th or 5th time I listen to it, I actually really like it. And I think I mean, it is hilarious that the ending to the first season, like the first part, is Roundabout, which is where that meme comes from, by the way.
Yes,
the Roundabout
yes.
meme, the to be continued meme.
Yes.
In part 3, it's Walk Like an Egyptian, which is hilarious.
Yeah.
All the old paintings on the tomb, they do the sand dance, don't you know? If they move too quick, they're falling down like a domino.
I think the villains are also kind of the stars of part 2 to some extent. Mm-hmm. Like, part 2 is not part 2 without, the deuteragonists of Joseph and Caesar and the antagonists. Like, it's a really well put together season, I think.
Yeah.
Even though it's like there is a little bit of the narrative where it gets kind of messy in like the near like the middle end-ish, but I think that's always the case a little bit with JoJo. Like, it's so clear that he's writing it as he goes along. Sometimes you just kind of he just kind of forgets things happen. Mm-hmm. And it only gets really egregious in like the 4th and 5th part. But like, even then, it's not too bad, because you just have to, as long as you're on board with JoJo at the time, like you kind of overlook it. It doesn't really matter. It takes you on a journey, is what it is.
Yeah. Like a bizarre adventure.
A bizarre adventure. Woo. Yeah. Part 2 has a lot of the shining sort of like a couple of shining moments and hints of what is to come later in JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, which isn't to say that it's like not as good. It is really good, and Caesar's like bubble attack with the sun is really cool.
Yes.
Because that's one of the first first moments where you get this really bizarre application of a very specific power.
Yeah, it was awesome.
Which is what comes to define the rest of the series. So yeah, it's really cool that you see a little bit of it, and then in the next part you're like, oh. Ah. So let's talk about part 3, Stardust Crusaders. Or
Yes.
the most iconic JoJo part of all time. So Stardust Crusaders is about Joseph's grandson, Jotaro.
Yeah.
And Jotaro is voiced by Daisuke Ono and is 17 years old and massive. He's huge. He's also big
boy.
and buff. He's a big buff boy. Apparently, he's the only protagonist of JoJo that's actually based on another character. According to Araki, he's based on Clint Eastwood. So
that
he's
kind of
like,
makes sense.
yeah, because he's like a silent. He's like quiet. He only talks when he needs to. He always keeps his cool.
Very
but he's actually like
all the time.
he's actually pretty sharp, even though he looks like a delinquent.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he loves his mom, even though he talks bad to her.
Oh my god, he's so mean to her.
He's really mean.
She's like, "I love you, Jotaro," and he's like, "Fuck off."
Yeah, basically.
Don't talk to me.
And she's like, "Oh, Jojo."
Oh, Jotaro, he's just like that.
Yeah, it's like, Mom.
And then Joseph's like, "What the fuck is this?" Oh my god. I love that Joseph comes back for this part. Joseph in part 2 is really good because he's like fast talking, clever, cunning boy. But in part 3 he's just like he's here to be just like foxy grandpa.
Foxy grandpa.
Look, he's so good in part. He's a handsome grandpa man.
Yeah, I love the fact that they, because you would expect like, oh, he's grandpa mode now. He's probably he had built up so many experiences since his time in part 2. No, he's still like he's still just
like
a
that.
grandpa, and his ability isn't super great.
he's just a doting father.
Yeah.
I mean, I will say I like his ability. I like that it's just like not even, it's like barely a stand.
I like that it's a non-combat ability, right? Because you have a whole suite of different combat-focused abilities, and then there's him. It's more of a utility ability, and at that, a really specific one.
Well, I like the fact that it's like the narrative isn't necessarily about him, right? Because it's about Jotaro. He's the main character,
right? Exactly, and I think that's a good way of going about it. Is give Jotaro the flashy, cool ability, and then give his grandpa
It's a good choice. It's a good choice.
Yeah.
If you pay close attention, at the start of part 3, it is hinted that stand abilities are like Hamon, where you need to be breathing, and then Araki completely scraps that. Like, he just completely scraps it after that. He's like, no, this is dumb. I don't want it.
Oh, Araki.
But yeah, part 3 is definitely the most iconic part, because it's where the wada comes from.
It has a legendary final battle.
It has a legendary final battle, which we'll get into. Yes. It is, it's one of the longest parts for sure. It's so long. It went on for so many years. And it's really good. Like, so, okay. The thing that you have to understand about JoJo's Bizarre Adventure is that every part invokes a different genre, right? Mm-hmm. So you kind of have the first 2 parts where it's like finding its voice. It's like, it's a battle manga, but it's kind of interesting. It's about people fighting vampires, etc., etc. But part 3 is like so specifically like a very like Jules Verne's like, Around the World in 80 Days, Indiana Jones vibe.
Yeah.
Like, it's very globe-trotting adventure. And I think that's really cool. Like, they go to a lot of different places and they like have a lot of cool adventures. And they like, the show benefits so much from the introduction of stands. Yeah. Because stands are really where JoJo is, like, what JoJo is known for nowadays.
Yeah, it sets up like a rather unique take on like, basically like a summoning skill. Right. But it has like pretty like specific rules for each one, which is how you need to be able to set up like a quote unquote magic system, right? You got to have some rules for it to abide by so that people can believe it, like buy into it. And it feels like Araki like was really starting to solidify it
The thing about part 3 is that the stands in part 3 are actually pretty straightforward compared to the rest of the series. And it's only in parts 4 and 5 that they get so weird and abstract.
Right, yeah. It's like, okay, we've done the boring, like, straightforward stuff. Now we've got to get, like, super creative. Because that's what people enjoy, is, like, they enjoy seeing these creative abilities, specific abilities being applied super creatively in these very, very outrageous scenarios that you wouldn't see in any other series.
Yeah, it's very much like it becomes less of a fight and more of a physical puzzle, which is really cool. I think a lot of people have said that. And part 3 is definitely where it starts, because like there are some stand battles in part 3 that don't rely on brute strength and like just getting close enough for Jotaro to beat the crap out of them.
Right.
Like specifically the one against Steely Dan, where they have to like make their stands small and enter the brain.
Oh yeah.
The other really good one is the nightmare one, the Death 13, which is the baby stand.
Oh yes, the baby.
Yeah, where the baby has the clown stand and they can't remember the dream, but if they die in the dream, they die in real life. But any damage they take in the dream is transferred to real life. So Kakyoin is like, and then they knock him out with his stand. And he's like, just kidding. I got my cool stand with me. No one can just deflect the emerald splash.
No one can just deflect the emerald splash.
Part 3 is also kind of a weird one because part 3 actually had an anime adaptation back in like the 90s. But it was
right. Didn't they
bad.
do some kind of like OVA or something? Or
yeah, there was an
series?
OVA adaptation of part 3.
Yeah.
Way back when, but it's like nowhere near as good as the current iteration of it.
Yeah.
Because they didn't really have a grasp on it. But now, because they have like a really good voice actor for Dio, and they have a really strong guideline for where they want to go with you know, with the visual and sound design. Like the sound design is so good because the sound when they do the Zawarudo, where it's just like, you're like, oh shit, something cool is happening, and then they do the clock sound. You're like tick tick tick. You're like, oh, Dio, stop time.
Here it comes.
And I love the battle against Dio. It is.
Oh god, it was so good.
It's the best like lead up and payoff of any fight in this series.
Yep.
Aside from like spoilers for recent parts, but aside from the very great satisfaction you get from Giorno Muda-ing for like 30 seconds. Oh, that feels good to watch. But yeah, the lead up payoff for Dio as the villain of part 3 is just it's so good.
It was
the best in the series.
Awesome. Like, oh, I'm so glad I went on this long journey with these boys for this kind of climactic finale.
Yeah. I mean, you get super attached to the boys as well, and they get super attached to each other, and it feels real good because you're like, oh, we're all friends now.
Yeah, it was a nice group dynamic, kind of like
the group dynamic is really good, and
right, yeah. I mean, before they had only, at first it was Jonathan, and then it's part 2 it was Joseph
two protagonists.
and Caesar, and then now it's a whole group,
and now it's like 5,
nice.
And a dog,
and
the dog dies, by the way.
Oh, the dog death continues.
The dog death continues. Yeah, it's okay.
Yeah,
it's okay. Yeah, I do kind of like that. Like the thing is, well, you start to get a sense of everything that JoJo is in part 3. Like it's where it really finds its identity very strongly in all of the themes that and like sort of persistent things that come through. Like the fact that in every JoJo part, near the end, all of your favorite characters start dying.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh, okay.
I mean, at this point, having watched JoJo, that like someone's gonna there's gonna be some kind of character death that's like meaningful towards the end or something.
Yeah,
that's what happened in the previous parts. But you know.
I mean, part 4 is the only one that's slightly different because the only one who dies is like
Yes.
Shigechi, and you don't really,
Right. I think part
You
4
don't really
was
care
breaking
about
the formula
him.
quite a bit, which was nice.
You get kind of sad when he's like Josuke.
Yeah.
But that's kind of it because he's kind of a shithead.
Yeah.
But you feel bad for him because Kira is so bad.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So why is part 3 so good? I'll tell you why part 3 is so
Here we
good.
go.
Because part 3 is so ridiculously over the top, it's actually incredible. Because Jotaro's ability until the final fight is just punching stuff really good.
Really fast.
Like really good, really fast.
Yeah.
And yelling ora 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 ora.
Yeah.
First of all, like I think the first half of the adventure is really carried by the fact that the stand battles are kind of a new, unique thing. And then by the time you might get bored of them, they become interesting enough to actually stand on their own. Stand on their own. And I think that the final confrontation is so good. The lead up to it is really good. The build up to it is so good. And like the fact that characters have started dying by then really like nails home this idea that like we've sacrificed a lot to get here. And then when Kakyoin dies to give the information about what Dio's stand is, I mean, it in a way kind of it shows the like legacy of the show, right? The sort of like central theme of like this inheritance of legacy, right? It's like it's the passing of the crown of the torch, right? And if you like Boku no Hero Academia's one for all ability, you'll like JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, all of it, because that's what it is. It's about like how do you live up to the legacy of those who have come before you, and I love that Dio as a character is the like exact opposite of this idea, because he wants to take everything for himself and he's gonna live as long as he needs to do it. Like he has no sort of like impetus to like pass anything on, because he's taking everything for himself. So he is like, you know, the singular figure that exists and accumulates, whereas you know, the rest of them are a group that like passes stuff along. And oh my god, the lead up to the Jotaro being able to move in stuff's time is like incredible.
Yo, yes.
Where you're like, he twitches and he's like, oh no, what did you do?
Yeah, I was like, oh.
And then he's just like, it's probably fine. And he gets punched in the chest. He's like, whoa!
Right. I was like, oh my god.
Like, because I think because part 3 is very much like it is similar to part 1 in that because Jotaro's stand is such a straightforward like punching stand. It has a lot of really good moments where people are just beating the crap out of each other. And nowhere is this more apparent than in the battle against Dio, where they're just like they're like matching their rush attacks. So it's like ba 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 ba. And then they stop time. And then Dio drops a fucking steamroller on Jotaro.
Just like a golden steamroller, NBD. I remember that was like one of my first introductions to JoJo, was seeing the gif of that.
I didn't understand it then when I saw that. And I only barely understood it when I watched it, but I was
like,
so on board at that point. I was like, he's dropping a road roller on him! And then, like, they start punching the road roller to do more damage!
Yep.
And they punch it between the two!
Yep.
And then Jotaro stops time and you're like, oh shit.
Oh, it's on now!
It's on. Yeah, boy, it's just so good. And then like there's also a lot of really good little moments in in Stardust Crusaders. Like Joseph is so good because like he's supposed to be kind of like this American character, and so he says stuff in English sometimes. And it's like perfectly. It's perfect. Like
it's wonderful. Like my friend
perfect
has
exclamations.
has a ringtone of like a montage of all of his English from part 3.
Oh my god! Holy shit!
Yes!
There's just something intensely amazing about.
Oh no!
Oh no!
Oh no! Oh my god! Holy shit! Help me! Oh my god!
Yes. Oh my god! Which is, by the way, one of the best moments in the show as well. When he's fighting, it's like I don't know, the other gambling brother, the Darby Jr. Mm-hmm. When that's a really good one. That's a really good fight because they're fighting using video games, and he's like, "You're gonna do this. I'm gonna do this. Is he gonna do it? Yes. Well, I get, and then he's like, "How are you doing this? How are you cheating?" It's like it was Joseph. I am something of a video gamer. Like that's one of the most satisfying like beatdowns too, because you're like, oh yeah, this is so deserved. The guy's such a bastard.
They had to go through all the games and crap, and just like ugh, because like they couldn't use any of their powers.
I think again, like the lead up to it is also really good. Like the build up to a lot of these moments is perfect.
It just made it all the more satisfying, right? Because like, the whole, you know how it's gonna end, but just
it's all about the build up. The slow lead up to like, are you gonna punch me with your right fist?
Right.
No. Your left fist? No. Both? Yes. Are you gonna do that aura thing? Yes. Oh my god. And then you get it, and it goes. And again, I think part of the impact of the show is strong visual design, but it's also strong character design and strong sound design, because the like bullet sound when when Star Platinum punches is really good.
Yes.
You're like, it really like gives a hefty impact to the feeling of the the punches. And it gives you a sense of how fast Star Platinum is too. And that's like the nice thing about like when Jotaro like is able to stop time. You kind of get a sense of it before a little bit because of how fast Star Platinum is. Like there's a couple of moments where you're like, he shouldn't have been able to be that fast. Also, Jotaro is just an excellent protagonist. Like, because you can tell that he's like really prickly and silent, but he cares. And then also he's kind of hilarious.
Yes.
Right? Like there's little moments where you're like, oh, okay, he's actually kind of funny. Like the one where he's on where they're on the boat and he's just like, I found a way to discern stand users. If they smell cigarette smoke, they have a vein that pops up on their nose. And the guy is like, huh? And he's like, I found the idiot. It's like, what would you have done? I would have done it over and over again until someone did it. And it's like,
they have a lot of nice small ways of characterizing him beyond his very his cool stoic facade, which is great.
Jotaro is characterized very subtly.
Yes.
Which I think is really cool.
Yes, it's great.
So that's that's part 3. Part 3, which is
part 3.
Arguably the most iconic part of JoJo. By far the one that's like the most quoted, most beloved.
Yeah.
Cuz you just love it's like kind of the last part where you have big like muscly burly dudes duking it out with their fists. Oh, also Jotaro punches a shark. That's an important part of the show. Jotaro punches a shark with his astral projection.
Yeah, NBD.
And NBD. Also,
this happens.
if also like in the first couple episodes of JoJo part 3, Jotaro does this thing where he extends a Star Platinum's fingers. It's the Star Finger, and then he never does it again, which is like, okay, it's just one of those things. Yep. Let's talk about part 4. Diamond is Unbreakable, which is way different.
Yes, it is such a huge breakaway from the previous parts, and not necessarily in a bad way, because it's stylish as heck.
No. I think the character design for part 4 is much different, because the designs follow a different sensibility.
Yes, they do.
In the anime, by the way. Because in the manga, it's just Araki's like weird style. Part 4 is really good. I actually really, really like part 4. I might like it more than part 5. Because I think... I think part 4 has a lot of like small things about it that really, really build the atmosphere. I like that it's like it's so different because the pace of it is more like small town murder mystery.
Right.
Like, I love that it's kind of like a it's almost like watching like a ghost hunting show, because they're just like going around and like investigating like urban legends that happen to be people with stands.
Yes, yeah. I love the fact that they, after going on a worldwide trip, that he decided, let's do an adventure but more contained, and it happens to be contained in a small town that like he characterizes really well. Like the town has a really good vibe and atmosphere to it that is like so uniquely its own.
Oh yeah,
and then everything else occurs around it. Yeah,
it's interesting because the small town vibe in it is much more like American small town than it is Japanese small town. In many ways, it does feel like Persona 4, and it was Persona 4 before Persona 4 existed, because Diamond is Unbreakable came out in like the 90s. Yeah. Pretty good, I would say. Like,
it was awesome.
It's much more episodic. Like, there's two sort of, I guess you could call them major antagonists, and the second one is really good. The first one is pretty okay, I would say. I think part 4 is a little bit more aimless, but not in a bad way. Like, I think it's fine, just because part 4 is like what I like about part 4 is that it introduces stand users that aren't like combatants. They're just kind of people with weird powers that just sort of exist.
Yeah, like there's a literal alien that just shows up, and he's just there.
Okay. There is literally just an alien.
And he's voiced by the same actor that does Dio. So you're like, should I be suspicious? But no,
he's just an alien. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's an Italian chef.
Yes, the chef
who makes food that will destroy your body and then recreate it in a healthy way.
Yes.
There is a person who will put makeup on you that replaces your face to make you prettier for an hour at a time. I don't know. I just kind of love that like the town is fleshed out with these characters that are just kind of weirdos with stands. Right.
And I think for me, like that entire vibe, like all of it, and like the story, the murder mystery, the main crew, all the NPCs, like all of that vibe is why I end up liking part 4 more than part 5 so far. Is because like it feels like everything has a life and a personality that feeds into the narrative, whereas part 5 is like, yay, Italy, but Italy is filled with drugs. Oh no. And then but it doesn't have any unique life to it, right?
Yeah, I think what I would say about part 5 is just that like part 5 it feels much more like sort of a spin-off. Cuz it's not really connected to the mainline narrative, right? Cuz part 5 isn't about is not about a Joestar.
Right.
I mean, neither is part 3 or 4 technically, but that doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Because they're still technically part of the bloodline. Like Jotaro is Joseph's grandson, and
right. I mean, they do. I mean, Giorno still has like he has a bit of both, right? And that's what makes it so intriguing. Yeah,
Giorno. Yeah, I would say like the narrative is just about the gang and about Giorno more than it is about the location. Whereas I think part 4 isn't actually really about Josuke. It is much more about Morio.
Yes, I agree. Yep. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. If you're kind of into the like psychedelic, like 60s sort of vibe of part 4, you'll really, really enjoy it.
It's so good. I enjoyed it.
It's a very strong aesthetic, and it really comes through.
Yes.
It's kind of,
yes.
I will say it's impressive, and this is the thing that we haven't really touched on yet, but after part 3, all of the stands are named after bands or albums or songs.
Yes.
Like Western bands or albums or songs.
Araki's a music nerd like that.
Yeah.
For Western music specifically.
Like for Western culture in general, and it's like kind of like hilarious to me because he spoils the ending of The Sixth Sense, though, like I See Dead People spoiler in part 6. Like he puts the twist in the manga, and no one in Japan had seen it yet because it wasn't dubbed into Japanese yet.
Oh, that's funny.
So he just spoiled the movie for people who were reading the manga.
And then they watch it and they're like, hold up now.
just such a power move, honestly. and like you get hints of this before, because in part 2, one of the enemies is named AC/DC.
Yes.
Which just tells you kind of everything you need to know about that, hey?
I love how much Crunchyroll and anyone else that's had to sub this show has had to change the names.
They suffer so much from the fact that like these are all protected names and copyrights and brands.
And they will get sued the frick out of them if they mention them.
AC/DC is spelled ESIDISI.
It's so convoluted, and it's like, okay, I understand.
You have sometimes they just have to change the name of the stand entirely.
Yes, completely, yes.
Like what's it called? Sometimes they'll just change it to a song though. Like they'll move it adjacent one.
Right.
Sometimes,
No, I like it.
Sometimes they
or
can't.
They'll make a synonym out of it. You know.
I think it's hilarious that they couldn't find one for Green Day, so they just had to make it green tea.
But it was like
that's so funny.
It was like the pronunciation is like kind of there, right?
And also he's green. Bit.
He's green, so it was like I understand why they went that way, but it was just so funny.
Okay, I think my favorite ones though are the fact that Narancia's stand is Aerosmith and it's an airplane.
Yes.
And Notorious Big.
Oh my god,
just
yes.
for existing. Okay. Anyway.
Yeah.
So in part 4, it really leans heavily into this like small town murder mystery, which is really nice. It feels like a living sort of breathing town, and there's a lot of like weird stuff that happens in it that just kind of complements it.
Yeah, and I really liked the build up to when they actually have the confrontation with, when they kind of find the serial killer. It's like, okay, we know kind of this clue about him, and they're slowly getting closer to the answer. And then when finally they know who he is, it's like, okay, but how do we take him down?
Yeah.
They have a lot of nice arcs about it, and which is what I loved about part 4 too.
Yeah, I would actually tend to agree. I think that the way that Kira becomes the villain, the main antagonist, is actually really good. And I think the chase is also really good. Like the fact that he changes faces and like identities and then starts hiding, and because like that's after he gets cornered. Mm-hmm. So you think like, oh, is he gonna lose? But then he disappears.
Right?
And you're like, oh.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of the way that Kira Yoshikage is built up as a villain. I think he's probably the second strongest antagonist after Dio.
After Dio, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. The antagonist of part 5 is like I think the problem with that one is that he's not as well built up,
right?
As obviously. Because he's so shrouded in mystery, right?
Exactly.
Like, you know that he's bad and evil and that he's always, like, present. but you don't see a lot of it, or you don't
Right.
see as much of it as you might need to really like, you get it by the end. You're like, okay, yeah, fight him, beat him. He's bad. I hate him. But it's not as personal as Kira Yoshikage is because he's so in their face at the start.
Exactly. Yep, I agree.
And then because he manages to escape. Yeah, so I think the chase, and the mystery aspect of it is really good.
Yes.
And like I like that we get to watch it unfold because we know what happens. Mm-hmm. But we get to watch them get closer and closer to the truth. It's a really, really nice way of doing it. Like, I think that the thing about Araki's work is that there's an aspect to it where it takes a lot of like Western conventions of storytelling and uses and kind of weaves them into JoJo in a really satisfying way. Like, I'm surprised that it kind of works as well as it does because it kind of feels like he just kind of tacks them on, but they stick. Mm-hmm. Like he's just throwing spaghetti at the wall, but it just happens to stick more often than not. Yeah, and then like I like that he has like the arrow thing, like it unlocks a new power, and then that gets carried into part 5.
Yes, I love that.
Yeah, and it begins to kind of explain a little bit what stands are without necessarily getting like too midichlorians into it. Right, because they're like, yes, the arrows unlock hidden potential, but you'll die if you are bad at it.
Yeah, there is a fine line of how much you want to explain something.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, JoJo's is not any stranger to over-explaining certain things, but I think they
sometimes you can
appropriately
just
stray away from other things.
You can just kind of leave it be. It's like JoJo is not something that you try to understand. JoJo is just something you experience.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, okay, there are some things about part 4 that are not as tight, I guess I would say. Like it's a little bit of a mess sometimes.
It is. There are some parts of it that I was just like, I'm not here for this. But usually they weren't very long, thankfully.
Yeah, on the whole, it's pretty good. I really, really love Josuke's power.
Yeah. It's unique because it's like he's the first healing boy that we've seen so far.
Yeah,
And
he's a
he's the
healing
main
boy.
character.
He can't heal himself, but he can also break things down into their component parts, which is really cool.
Yeah.
Like, I love the scene where he's, and like part 4 is where stand battles get real weird.
Yes.
Like they never stop getting weirder, but they get real weird in part 4.
Yeah. They go up a notch quite a bit.
Like part 4 is where you have the one where you have to go more than 60 miles per hour or else you'll die.
Yes.
And so he steals a cell phone. Okay, and this is such a funny part where he steals the cell phone, and like it's like 1991 or something. So like it's like kind of, or what is it, like 1991 or something? I don't remember. But he steals a cell phone, and they're not super common, but it breaks, so he has to steal another one. Even though he probably could have just fixed it with his power. But it's just funnier when he does it.
Yeah.
And then that's a really cool stand battle. I think that's one of the more unique ones. Mm-hmm. I like the Italian food episode is just maybe one of the best episodes of JoJo.
I love the food one.
Maybe one of the best standalone episodes of JoJo in the series. It's just so funny. Because it's like weirdly tense for no reason.
I know.
It's like suspenseful. You're like, oh no, is everything okay? But it turns out he just wants to make food, and that's good for people.
It's because of all of your investment in watching all of JoJo up until now could only make this joke funny, right? It's just like it's only if you've watched everythve up until this point.
It's
so
because
it's so good.
It's because it plays so strongly off of the rest of JoJo and like what you've come to expect. Like Araki is always subverting your expectations. Like I didn't even know I had expectations left to subvert, and then part 8 came along and I was like, all right, I guess this is where we are now. Anyway, yeah, part 4. I love part 4. I'm actually incredibly charmed by part 4. I was really sad when it ended. Like part 3 ending, I was like broken. I was like, oh, what will I do with my life? And I had to immediately start part 4, and I was like, I'm so here for this.
Yeah, it's like, this is different. Oh, I love this.
I love this so much. I didn't fall quite as hard for part 5, but I do think it's charming in its own way.
Right, yeah. It has some stuff that it does well, and it has some stuff that's just like, it overall is, again, another different approach, and
yeah, I think
it's interesting to see, right? Because it's like, oh, we're following people who aren't necessarily goody two shoes, you know?
Yeah, they kill people all the time. It's just murder time. Okay.
Yeah.
One last thing about part 4, aside from the fact that I love Okuyasu, I love Okuyasu because Okuyasu is the Kuwabara of JoJo. And I love that archetype so much.
He's a good delinquent boy.
He's just like, oh, hey Josuke, how's it going? I'm here to be your friend. He's like, I don't want to be your friend. I'm here to be your friend. And then they become friends, and I love it. I love Okuyasu so much.
Yeah.
Okay. And I love, oh my god, the part where Okuyasu like doesn't die because he's like, his brother is like, you got to make that choice for yourself, and he's like, yeah, I guess so. I'll come back to my friends. I was like, oh, Okuyasu. I was legitimately like, my heart was like,
I was touched, yes.
My heart was so full at that moment. I was like, my heart is swelling. I love Okuyasu so much. He's just a good boy. He's trying his best.
He's
but
trying
he's just
his best.
He's just criminally stupid.
Leave him alone.
Anyway, okay. Also, so part 4, I feel like part 4, Araki was building up to bite the dust, sending Josuke into the past to rescue himself from the snow. Like, do you know what I mean?
Yes, I know what you mean, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Where it's like, oh, when I was a kid and I was dying, and that part is actually really important because that's tied to part 3, where Dio is manifesting the stance of everyone in the Joestar bloodline.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
I thought that was really cool. And then there was gonna be I feel like because like the conceit of it is that like the boy who helped push their car out of the snow had Josuke's current hairstyle, which is why he gets mad when anyone insults it.
Right, yeah.
And it feels to me like so strongly like Araki was building up to like bite the dust, send like Killer Queen bite the dust, sends him back into that moment so he can save himself, and then he just forgets about it.
It's like now that you brought it up,
it's so obvious.
Yes, because at that moment, when I was watching the scene, I was like, okay, this is what he's gonna build up to. It's like, but now it's like, wait, where did it go?
But no.
Oh, Araki. There's a lot of, like,
Araki.
he has a very, like, pick up the ball, drop the ball kind of way of storytelling.
I think the thing that is so charming about JoJo's Bizarre Adventure is that he clearly has, like, nothing planned at all, ever. He definitely writes it as he goes along. It feels actually a lot like he's DMing a Dungeons & Dragons game for you, because he incorporates stuff that, like, comes back from the past, and you know all that jazz, but sometimes he just forgets about things, and you're like, that's valid. You've been writing this for 30 years.
Right, exactly. And it's at the same time you look at these like long anchoring Shonen Jump authors who like don't forget a single freaking thing, and you're
but
you them
Oda
as
doesn't
gods.
count,
right? But it and. It's just funny to see someone who's less competent at that do their own thing. It's just like, well, I understand though. You're a little more human in that regard, right?
I think the thing about it is it's really forgivable just because the sort of style of JoJo and the kind of general flow of it is much less concerned about specific details and much more about like what the sort of overarching flow of it is, like what the grand narrative of it is. So I think it becomes a lot like it becomes very excusable, I think, because it doesn't really matter, right?
Yeah, at this point, if you've been watching this long, then you have to be the type of person who can watch this show without being too like okay, well, this continuity doesn't make sense because of this thing, right? Like that kind of detail orientation. Like, I'm a detail oriented person, but I understand that the conceit of JoJo isn't based around that, right?
Yeah, and also like, he writes these things for such a long time.
Yeah.
Like, every part is like years.
Yeah.
Right? Every part is like a whole new series.
Right.
It's actually really funny. Apparently, when he published Steel Ball Run, he didn't write it under JoJo initially, even though he was always writing it as part of the JoJo sort of like series. And we'll get into why that is at the end, because I'll talk a little bit about the manga.
Okay.
But anyway, it's so good. Oh, it's so good. But also, like, it's so funny that he misses that.
Oh.
He completely misses the mark on that. He's like, oops. Oh, well.
Oh, well, I mean, I gave enough hints. It's fine.
That's
but
fine.
You won't know how it happened, but who cares?
It's just, I mean, it just becomes a random delinquent then.
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
Even though you know it's Josuke.
You know that's what he was building up to.
Supposed to be Josuke. Yeah. Killer Queen has a really strong ability, and I like the like kind of weird like progression of his ability too, where he like adopts the cat plant and it becomes like an invincible stand.
The plant.
Like, it's such a weird detail, and that's like such a weird twist to go to.
Yeah.
And yet it kind of works.
It did.
It kind of works. And then Kiryoshika gets hit by an ambulance and he dies.
Yeah, a local man gets struck by an ambulance fatally.
So that's a count of two people hit by public service vehicles, and the one who's hit by an ambulance dies. The one who's hit by a road roller doesn't. And speaking of, let's talk about Part 5, Golden Wind.
Golden Wind.
Golden Wind is about Dio's son, Giorno, in 2001, Italy.
Yeah. And it's about dim drugs and how Giorno wants to become a gang star.
A gang
Not
star.
Not a gangster, gang star.
Like a pop star,
to combat
but
the whole
gangster.
Drug influence, because that's apparently the worst thing you could ever be involved in.
He wants to become the leader of the mafia so that he can stop the flow of drugs and bring it back. It's funny because it's a gangster movie, but it is like much more of a Yakuza movie.
Yeah,
it's very much.
It's just interesting. It's kind of like murder is fair game, but not drugs.
Well,
it's
fair. It's fair game to murder murderers, I guess, is kind of the scheme of it.
Yeah, but it's like mafia extorts money and whatnot out of regular people too. But apparently, if you infect the regular people with drugs, then that's the line that you don't cross. It's just a really specific thing to hamper on when you're dealing with the mafia.
Yeah, but it's like, I feel like it's just because this sort of like I feel like there's this kind of idealized idea of the mafia that the characters believe in more, like even more so than I think Araki does. Like they're sort of all of their sort of like young children selves have been like heavily influenced by like the one good deed that the mafia did for them, right? And so they return to pay it back by overhauling the system. So yeah, I mean,
okay,
yeah, it's Part 5 feels like a spin-off part because it's not connected to Part 4 really, except for the existence of Koichi and Jotaro somewhere in the distance, and it's not really connected to Part 6, which is actually highly tragic. But I'll get into that maybe in another episode when we talk about the manga. It feels like a very different part because it's like. It's just so disconnected from the rest of the series. And it plays on something else. I think it is interesting, though, as an aside for the series, just because it is about somebody whose like inheritance and their legacy is like pure evil.
Yeah, and he's not necessarily like connected in terms of like, because he doesn't know Dio or whatever, he doesn't know about the JoJos and whatnot. He's just his own dude, and he has a mom who sucks, and and that's all he has in terms of family legacy, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so he's a very independent character compared to some of the other previous ones.
Yeah, and then also you remember he's like 16. You're like,
Yeah.
Oh, Giorno, you're a baby.
Baby.
I don't know. I like part 5 quite a bit, actually. I could not wait for the anime to come out, so I just read the manga after I caught up. Mm-hmm. Which is why I started reading the manga, and then it was kind of over. So yeah, I think that part 5 is a very different part because it's basically just battle after battle after battle.
Exactly. It's very battle focused. So if you like that, then this could be the part for you.
It's somewhat similar to part 3 in that way, but it's much less an adventure and much more a straightforward.
Oh yeah, it's way less campier.
Gauntlet.
Like
it feels like a gauntlet.
Exactly. You feel a lot closer to the characters in part 3 because they're silly, and they're going on a worldwide trip, whereas for part 5 it's just like relentless battling because of the situation that they're in. They're being pursued.
Yeah, they're
by
being
the
pursued.
Top guy.
I will say I kind of like this. I kind of like the like cat and mouse pursuing dynamic, though. I think that it makes for a very compelling and interesting narrative. Like because it's so on the move all the time, you don't like get a ton of time to rest. It feels like. Have you ever? Okay, speaking of things that have come out recently, have you ever seen the original John Wick movie or any of them? Actually, I guess.
Yeah.
It feels a lot like John Wick. Where he's like constantly fighting, and you're like, Keanu, how are you not like exhausted?
Yeah, I can understand that. The problem for me is that like the way that John Wick goes into it is the beginning you get the bit of characterization that you're gonna get from him, which is dog and lost lover, like that kind of situation. And you become attached to him because it's like that's a really screwed up situation that he's in, right? Whereas for part 5, you're meant to not sympathize with these guys because they're not good people. And so you don't really generate a good connection with them unless like you're invested in how they solve problems and go against this big bad organization.
I mean, I'm invested in this kind of like found family trope they have. I like that a lot.
Well, I guess for me, like I'm less on the I want to see this boss rush battle kind of situation. I'm more into the character side of it, so that's why it doesn't resonate as strongly with me. And plus, like I think they do a really poor job of representing Italy.
Yeah, there's not a lot of Italy in it other than the fact that they are gangsters in the mafia.
Right, they're gangsters, and the set pieces are in Italy, right? You get to see like the Colosseum and all that jazz, but it's very like surface level. I took a trip to Italy for like a week kind of situation, right?
But I feel like on the other hand, so is part 1.
Well, yeah, and that's why I'm not super fond of part 1 or part 5 in comparison to some of the other parts, is because it feels a little less like incorporated into the environment, and the characters themselves aren't super well fleshed out for me.
I think part 5 is the weakest in terms of setting, because it just kind of isn't Italy because it has to be.
Right.
Yeah,
it's like we are the mafia, therefore the mafia is in Italy. And I mean, it's nice that they speak like a bit of Italian here and there, but that's not a culture, right? That's a language. Yeah.
You know what I will say? I'm actually a little bit disappointed with how the fact that Giorno is Dio's son doesn't really come up after the first like couple episodes.
Yeah.
I kind of thought there would be at least a little bit more about it. I guess it's fine that there wasn't necessarily. Like, it's not like super important, I guess, after the initial like, okay, he's not like a bad guy. Like, he's not out to turn everyone into evil vampire army.
Right. I think that's compelling, though, right? It's because
I
it's
think
like,
so.
okay,
Right.
Well, you don't know anything about Giorno other than like his one mom, but it's like you don't know
And
how
his
Dio
dad.
got
You know
involved
it's-
with mom, right?
Right.
Yeah.
You know how he's Dio's son, and you
Yes.
kind of wait to see like how he turns out.
Exactly.
And he's like idealistic, and he does his best. And I think there's something to be said about how part 5 is kind of like part 5 is like Dio's redemption arc, not in a way that redeems Dio, but in a way that redeems his backstory, I would say, because Giorno's backstory is very similar to Dio's backstory, where like he has like the really like shitty, neglectful parent, right? And I feel like where in part like 1 and later, right, Dio becomes bitter and seeks to like end the world and become the god king of the universe. Giorno is like kind of the opposite, right? Like his trajectory changed, and he decided he wanted to be a better person, even if that meant being like in the mafia and controlling it as the boss of the mafia.
Right. Yeah,
right?
I do like that actually. Yeah.
And I mean,
yeah.
he's also like he's a teenager, right? He's 16.
Right.
Like he's gonna idolize the cool people that helped him once.
Right.
So yeah, I think that's it. I like a lot of moments in part 5. I think as a whole, it's a little shakier, although I think it's held together by the fact that it's basically just like this cat and mouse like mafia assassination
that's
game.
what I like about JoJo's Bizarre Adventure in general, is like each part is such a different take that
it's
like
so
if
different.
if there's a certain part of storytelling in general that you like, or Araki storytelling that you really fixate on, there's a part there that you'll probably like that really appeals to that sensibility. So you might not like one part, but you might like the next one a whole lot, like that kind of situation.
Yeah, I think part 5 is probably one of the weaker parts, but it's I still like it. And
Right.
boy, okay. Everybody needs to know about the 6-page Muda, which is where Giorno mudas Chocolata for 6 pages, and it's
I
like
didn't
the
know
most
it was that long in the manga too.
in the manga. It's a 6 pages long, and it's so satisfying to see. And then when you see it animated, and then like muda, you're like, oh, he's doing it. And then like, and I'm kind of this is another one of those things that Araki just kind of forgot about, but like you can kind of infer a little bit, right? Where because Chocolata doesn't die immediately, he's having that thing that Bruno had in the first episode, where he's like experiencing his like out of body experience. So he's like he's experiencing pain for hours and hours.
Oh.
Yeah, do you remember that thing where he punches him with gold experience, and then like Bruno's like, huh, wait, I'm outside of my body. No, right? And then it never comes up again.
Yeah.
Oh, and the other part of Giorno's power that never comes up again, which is the part where the things that he creates with his ability reflect damage. Like, do you remember how he kills like the guy in the first episode with that, where he like hits him with the shovel and it hits the frog and then he gets his head dented in?
Yes.
That ability never comes up again.
Oh.
He mostly just uses it. I mean, to be fair, there is nothing that suggests that ability doesn't exist anymore. He just uses it differently.
It's just not used.
Yeah, which is funny. But you know he forgot about it. Like, you know he forgot about it, because that was episode 1. And like, that's the thing about JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, is like Araki's always trying to figure something out. Like the first few episodes, like the first okay, never trust anything that happens in the first I'd say 10 chapters, because some of it is just gonna fall by the wayside. It's not gonna matter.
Sure. Yeah.
But anyway, part 5. pretty good. Pretty good.
Sure.
I do see what you mean though about the ending, where it was just like, sex, I'm so horny.
Stop! Don't say it!
That was a really, really interesting thing to experience after this like super serious narrative about like, you can't abandon your family and try to kill them. That's bad. And then like that, and then he's like, we killed him, we did it. And then the episode ends like, so horny. And you're like, I mean, I guess.
I knew that was gonna happen too. The first time I heard that ending, I was like, this is not a choice that you should be making in an action shonen show where there's gonna be a lot of dramatic cliffhangers.
Yeah, I think that's the only ending I'm not like a huge fan of. And that's 5 parts of JoJo. That's all the anime that's out right now.
Yes.
Part 5 is still airing. I won't
Yes.
tell you what happens, but there's some
Don't
exciting
tell
stuff.
me. Don't spoil me. I haven't.
There's some
read the
exciting
manga.
stuff that happens. I don't know if you've seen
Good.
the latest episode, but
Yes, I did. Yes.
yeah.
Yeah.
In it.
In
In it. Part 5 ends in a very interesting way, and you don't get a whole lot in the way of an epilogue, but you know what happens, and that's pretty interesting.
That's what I have that feeling that they're building up to something that's gonna be interesting. So I'm waiting.
It
for
is
that.
certainly like weird. It was actually kind of hard to read because I wasn't sure. Like it was a little hard to follow in the manga, so I hope the anime does a better job of making that like sort of scene legible. Like the final couple scenes are a little bit like confusing to say the least,
Okay.
because like
Sure.
you're basically trying to overcome an invincible stand, quote unquote,
Right.
which is I always love that like the overpowered stand always has to do with time.
Right.
Even
It's
in part
Zawarudo,
4,
part 2.
Zawarudo. Like even in part 5, even in part 4, where his ability eventually becomes time looping.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Kira Queen bites the dust.
Yep. I remember.
And then part 5, he can just erase parts of time.
Yes.
So, it gets real weird. I promise, it goes so off the rails at the end.
Can't wait.
Yep. Yeah, and that's 5 parts of JoJo. It's hard for me to talk about JoJo's Bizarre Adventure because everything that I like think about it is so tangled up with just kind of how much of an experience it is to watch. Mm-hmm. Like, I can't recommend it enough, but it's like, why?
There's people that I can recommend it to, and there's people that I definitely cannot. So it's just like, again, if you're the type of person who takes your anime really seriously, this might not be the show for you. But if you can just go along for a crazy ride, as the title of the show pertains to, then this could be your jam.
Also, in part 4, Josuke's ability is healing, so a bunch of people just keep losing limbs and getting beat the heck up. And I was like, okay, part 5 is not going to have that. And part 5, people losing limbs all over the goddamn
gets
place.
Worse, like in terms
It's
of like
so
how
wild.
dramatic the injuries are and how they get restored.
I mean, it's cool. It's just like,
Sure.
I see. I see.
There's a lot of medical misinformation in part 5. Let's just say
Oh,
that.
I'm absolutely certain that nothing about it is medically sound.
Don't ever go to JoJo's for your medical information anyway. Like that should be common sense. But also, like there's parts in part 5 where I was getting mad. I was just like, come on.
Oh yeah. Oh
They're
yeah.
pushing the envelope a lot. So whatever. I guess just gotta go with it.
Okay. So that's 5. That's 5 parts of JoJo. I don't know.
Oh shit, JoJo.
After having it consumed my life for a solid month at least,
Yeah.
I'm surprised that I'm not sick of it.
Right. Isn't it great that how like I think because of the fact that it can be so different between parts too, is that it's just like it changes it up so much that you don't feel like, okay, we're just repeating the same stale old formula again. Because Araki's always trying to engineer a new way to flip your brain upside down.
I promise that by the time you get bored of JoJo, Araki will do something so fucking wild that you will just be like, what?
You're like, okay, well, I guess one more episode.
Okay, I'll talk briefly about parts 6, 7, and 8. I'll touch on them. No spoilers, for the most part.
Yeah.
Part 6 is about Jotaro's daughter, and I love her. She's my big favorite.
Ooh.
That's all I'll say about it. I like part 6 a lot. I think it's very, very interesting. It does become kind of a mess at the end. But that's, I think, that I think might be the case for any part that's not part 3. All of them get a little bit kind of tangled and messy at the end, but that's okay. Part 7 and 8 are part of a different timeline entirely. So parts 7 and 8 are a reboot of the JoJo universe, which kind of sucks a little bit because like all the investment that I have in like the Joestar bloodline is like set aside.
Well, I don't like that. Wait. But the whole show is built on this inheritance of like what we've been talking about.
I know.
What?
But I think to be fair, like after part 6, there's actually very little place to go because Araki caught up to the present day.
Oh. Okay.
Yeah. So part 6 is actually quite good because it's about America, and boy, does Araki know a lot about America.
Well, great. I hope he knows more about it than Italy.
He definitely does. It actually takes place in prison.
Oh, interesting.
It takes place in a Florida penitentiary.
Oh, Florida.
Oh, Florida. It's quite interesting. Very, very strange. But it's good. Part 6 is really good. I really enjoyed part 6. Part 7 is also really good. But part 7 is also set in America, but it's the reboot where it is in the 19th century about paraplegic horse rider Johnny Joestar. So he was a horse racer that got into an accident, and now he can't walk. And subsequently now he can't ride horses.
So did they set up the whole thing with Dio all over again? Wait, that spoils. Maybe I shouldn't ask that.
I'm not gonna say anything except for the fact that Dio does exist in some form, but he's not related to Johnny Joestar. Like how Dio in the original timeline is Jojo's like stepbrother.
Right.
Like there is basically it's a horse race across America, the Steel Ball Run. And it draws a lot off of like cowboy movies and things like that.
Sure.
And it's about Johnny Joestar and I think Caesar Zappelli. I think it's Caesar. I think he uses that name. But it's a Zappelli, which is what you need to know.
Right.
Part 7 might actually rank really highly in my parts. Like it might be number 2 in terms of how much I enjoyed it. It's really, really well done and highly, highly engaging all the way through. And the villain is like the antagonist of it is well characterized. I think he's one of the strongest villains actually after Dio.
Oh.
Because Dio is like amusing and well done in the way that he's like just pure evil, right? Like he's just mean. Like he's just like, you are but a monkey underneath me.
Monkey.
Monkey nandayo. Monkey nandayo. But part 7 actually has like a slightly morally gray antagonist who is still nonetheless characterized as being a villain because he
opposes the protagonist.
Well, he opposes the protagonist, but he also there's a lot more subtle characterization about how he's not like a good person.
Sure, I like that.
And I won't say anything more than that.
Okay.
Because when you learn who the antagonist is, you're like, oh.
Okay.
Ah.
I'll look forward to it.
And Dio does exist in this universe, but his name is Diego Brando, and he's a horse jockey.
Alrighty.
Also, he turns into a dinosaur.
Okay, there we are.
So there's that. Yeah, you meet Dio, and then he's turned into a dinosaur by someone's stand.
Man, you know.
Just because that's how it is.
Local man turns into dinosaur.
Yep. And then part 8.
Okay.
I almost don't know what to say about part 8.
Okay.
Because part 8 is like part 4, but everything is different. Like, it takes place in Morio. It is about one Josuke Higashikata, sort of, but not really. But there's a whole Higashikata family, and also there's like Akira Yoshikage, but kind of not really. Oh my god. Part 8 is so weird and so different than anything. I have no idea what's going on in part 8. And I'm like 80 chapters into it.
Is it ongoing right now?
It's ongoing right now.
Okay.
Nothing about it makes any sense. But I'm on board for it, so whatever.
Okay.
I mean, it's JoJo.
Yeah.
It's JoJo.
Okay.
But honestly, like, you kind of forget that it's a new continuity. Well, okay, you don't really forget, but you stop minding after a while.
Okay, that's good.
Because it's still JoJo. Like, it still feels so JoJo, and like, holy crap! If you thought the stand battles in parts 4 and 5 were weird, you ain't seen nothing until you see stand battles in part 8. And that's all I'll say about that.
I'm excited.
Part 6 also has some very strange stands. Yep.
Okay.
And I think that's I don't know, that might be it. We didn't write many notes aside from like summary notes, and so we just kind of summarized what JoJo's Bizarre Adventure was.
Yeah, which was all of that.
We talked about the general themes of it, and yeah, like, I think if we talked any further, we'd be here for another 2 hours. So maybe we should wrap up.
I mean, a 2-hour cast about JoJo's is about what?
2 hours is very nice and
it's
sort
very
of condensed.
Honestly,
It's a very generous condensation of content.
Yeah.
Where can we find you on the internet? What are you up to?
Well, I have another convention in 2 weeks, so that'll be a thing I'll be doing.
Exciting.
Yeah, so it'll be fun. Other than that, you just find me on Twitch and Twitter and all the socials at SwanDrawn. You can find me on Instagram at swan.drawn. I will probably be working on like commissions and all that stuff. Yeah, so that's where we'll be doing.
Nice.
How about you?
You can find me all the places at Literal Soup, including AO3 now.
Go read Soup's fanfiction, even if you're not into Grand Blue. It probably will make zero sense, but I need you guys to experience Soup's writing.
All you need to know is that Shiva has 4 arms. Yep, that's about it. Okay.
Great. That will give people an impression.
In the next couple weeks, I will be graduating, probably.
Yes, I'm so excited.
As long as I don't fail my classes instantly.
You'll be fine.
Hopefully. Anyway, I will hopefully be graduating. Next week, like this coming week is my last week of instruction ever.
Whoa.
And then
you'll wake up to nightmares like that you'll have something due and there will be nothing due.
Yeah, it's gonna be awful. I can't wait. So yeah, I will be doing that, and it will be highly stressful and terrible and awful. but then I'll come out of it a free person.
Free man.
Free.
Free.
I'll be stone free, I say, because part 6 is part 6 of JoJo's is stone free, right? Or is it Stone Ocean?
Stone Ocean.
Stone Ocean. I think Stone
Ocean free.
I think Stone Free is her stand. I think that's what it is.
Oh, okay.
Anyway, aside from that, not about JoJo's. So that's really what I'm going to be focusing all my effort on. I might play a little bit of Grand Blue. I might play some Overwatch. I'm still doing the tournament thing. This time,
it's still going.
No, it's a new season of tournament.
Oh, okay. I was gonna say oh my god, it's the longest tournament I ever heard of.
No. We finished the last one and we've started a new one. Except I'm part of a different team, but with one person from the team I had last time.
Okay.
We've won 2 of our games.
And it wasn't by default?
No, we did win 1 by default, but we won 2 more regularly.
Oh, okay, good.
So we've won 3 games.
Oh.
And
I hope you guys keep going.
Yeah, it's kind of nice to win games.
It's nice to win.
I don't like losing all the time.
Sure. Well, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Really, I'm just thinking about the dread of having to enter the workforce and all that. Hopefully I get to do something fun before I do that. I might go on a road trip or something across somewhere. I kind of want to take a road I kind of want to just fall off the grid and take a road trip through all the weird towns in California and just take pictures of the buildings there. That sounds kind of interesting to me.
That was nice.
Honestly, I would love to spend just a solid 2 months traveling the entirety of California and staying in a different town every night. But that sounds expensive and a lot of work.
It would be both, yes.
So I might do that for 2 weeks or so. If I can, convince people that's a good idea. Anyway, I gotta think about summer plans after I do my finals, or else I will never do my finals.
Something to work toward.
Something to work towards. All right. Thank you for listening. You can find the podcast Twitter at AbsoluteCast. You can find us on Patreon at patreon.com/@cast.
Yes.
And then you can give money to us so that we can not be poor when we make podcasts, because Adobe is the worst.
No obligation.
No obligation. It would just be nice. But we appreciate you listening nonetheless.
We appreciate the listens far more.
That's true. That's true. We'd rather you listen than just give money and not listen. That would be sad. That would make me sad. Don't make me sad. Please don't make me sad.
Oh my god.
Okay. Well, I guess we'll see you next time. I didn't memorize the song, but it's Majima, 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 Kitten Setsu. Right? I think that's
great.
Sure, close enough, whatever. It's fine. I'm not gonna remember it by the next time, I promise. Every time we'll just be a little bit confused.
That's a better promise.
Alright. Goodbye.
Bye.
Hello, everyone. One last addendum because I forgot this in the original recording, but our opening is by Skytoon Network and our ending is by Takuma Okada.
また明日ね。